I didn't go with Marion on her trip virtually around the world.
So at home, he took a sentence out of each one of my letters that I sent him while I was away and made this pot.
I decided I would like to preserve this trip around the world as she was experiencing it.
Indian music, elusive, mystical, full of pain. They bathe men and women stripped to the waist. They sleep, they are born, copulate, and die, all with their goats, dogs. Only the very rich are allowed in here on Coronation Day. The happy stay outside, and I can love them all. It sits over there in silence, but it's a living entity, I can tell you. And that's the thing that changed my life, that journey. I was one person before I went, and a very different one when I came back. Insofar as the whole pattern of death and destruction leading to new life, that is what happened in my experience. I couldn't relate when I came back. And fortunately, again, destiny, my husband had a fellowship in England, and we went to England, and I was able to find Dr. Bennett, a Jungian analyst. It was through that work that I did with him that I was able to make some kind of meaning that would reconnect me to life here again. And of course, that ultimately became my new life's work. New life's work.
And it was a Jungian world.
It was a Jungian world. Though he rarely mentioned Jung, and if I used to read the Jungian books, and I would go back and I'd say, I've got it all figured out. This complex is fighting this complex, and this complex is working this way. And he said, I don't talk Japanese. Don't give me that stuff. And I started to dream, wonderful dreams. I mean, I always dreamed, but these were incredible dreams. I can't tell you what it meant that somebody could recognize this huge part of me and say, it does make sense. And you aren't crazy by paying attention to this. So, of course, we worked very, very hard on the dreams. And I realized that this was my gold. And that indeed, the pattern of the dream would show me where the energy was trying to go, when I had no idea where to go. There'd be this little hook on the end of the dream that said, this way, Marion. That's true for everybody. The last little part of the dream is where the energy is trying to go. If we think of the dream as taking energy in the metaphor, in the picture that is the dream, what is the energy that that picture is releasing, if it has a chance? If you don't work on it, it will never be released. It's just a dead letter. If you don't use the material that your body and brain, because the metaphor comes out of the body, is transformed into an image of the brain. If you don't work with that, you're throwing the gold out. And the healing power is in the metaphor.
The dream speaks like a great poet.
It does.
Bringing together disparate images to reach secret depths of unsuspected feeling.
Exactly. So that the image brings together the imagination, the seeing, the hearing, all these senses are brought into play. And that's true with trauma. You can cover it up, but sooner or later, you have to be strong enough to endure the impact of imagination, intelligence, and feeling for the totality.
Everything you're describing, you learned through your analysis with Dr. Bennett, and your own self-study, but also through going to Zurich, where your life would take you not just to be an analyst, but to become an analyst. You studied to become an analyst at the Jung Institute. What happened to you when you came back from Zurich? What happened to your marriage? What kind of person were you? You spent how many years there?
5.
5 years. 5 years. Now, you were back and forth, but 5 years. And in those 5 years, you were becoming stranger and stranger to me.
Every time I came home, it was stranger
And stranger, because you were going through a radical inner transformation of your own that appeared to be going on quite independently of me. I never knew quite what I was going to meet when you got off those planes.
Nor did I.
And there was always a crisis.
He got thinking and wanted to have the marriage sort of in a new way. And so he was lying on one couch in our living room, and I was on the other, and our beautiful big Weimaraner dog was on the carpet in between, Samantha. So we were talking back and forth, was all we did, and very quietly, he said, "Marion, would you repeat our wedding vows?" And knowing that something must be up, I said, "What is it you want me to say?" And he said, "I promise to love, honor, and obey."
Love, honor, obey. And by obey, I meant only this. Marion, if I asked you in the name of this marriage to give up Zurich because I find it too threatening to live with, would you do it? That was the context of the word obedience. And you looked at me and very quietly said, "No." Now that quiet no did not settle easily. It was like a bullet to the brain. At that moment, I felt I had lost you. Which is to say, I had lost a certain image of myself in relation to marriage and in relation to you, which was really behind it a certain power over your decisions and movements that I somehow expected that you would sacrifice if necessary, or at least surrender to my will. If you like, I had been seeing through a glass darkly. But now I was seeing face to face. And I didn't know whether I liked what I saw.
And there was such an electric charge went off in our living room that I could hardly believe what happened. It wasn't, there was no sound. It was just this terrific change of energy. And Sammy, our beautiful Weimaraner, stood up and fell down. Her front paws buckled. And she was in perfectly good health. And then she went to walk again and
Got up and ran into the wall and had a stroke. And Samantha was put down. She had the stroke that I would have had.
and that I would have had
Yeah. Would have
if
had.
I had not said no.
Yeah.
So we both said, you know, a sacrifice, a huge animal sacrifice has been made here. And we have got to really take it in and comprehend what happened and change it.
It's a different masculine that can take that no. It's a different masculine.
I had to have my freedom to make my feminine choice.
And when I realized that what I was in love with was your free soul
That's right.
that could stand to its own truth, I began to see what you meant by the masculine as not power, not patriarchy, but the new masculine. And I would say that was its birth.
Masculinity and patriarchy are not synonymous. The true masculine is not the enemy of the feminine. It's not into power the way patriarchy is into power. Who do you think you are comes from power.
Right.
And as many mothers say that as fathers.
Absolutely.
And so that the masculine, when you see people really trying to bring in the sword of discretion, which is powerful with the masculine, and they need that strong masculine to protect the embodiment of the feminine.
Of course.
And to use the discrimination, this
That's
is of
it.
value to me, this is of no value, and that's gonna go.
The masculine is also the lover of the feminine, the protector of the feminine.
And the feminine in himself as well as in the woman.
Right.
And she's also got to develop her masculinity so that you have a foursome, as it were, relating. A developed conscious masculine and feminine in both the man and the woman or whoever the partner is. But reconciling those opposites is the key to a new birth.
Well,
I
the
just
father-mother
had it.
has to come together for there to be a birth.
Yeah.
Transcendence and immanence have to come together for there to be a birth of the divine human.
And father and mother, as we're talking about it now, I would see as soul and spirit. Mother as body, Black Madonna, earth, soul, embodied soul, and spirit as that swan, that light energy that is so powerful, you can't take it for very long. It just comes in and drops its sperm, a whole new life is possible. And so we're dealing with what Jung calls the inner marriage. I mean, I'm sure every religion, Shiva Shakti, and in the Chinese world, yin and yang, it's that union of those two energies that all those great religions are working towards.
And that's why relationship, especially the long alchemical work of a marriage, is the perfect place to work out the inner marriage.
That is exactly true. We went through a huge crisis when I came back from Zurich because I was doing my best to fit in to an old situation, and it was not working. I like to get up in the morning early, and so I was by myself in the living room, he got up and came out to the kitchen. He had on his old black watch house coat, little spindly legs down below. And I was sitting in the chair in the living room. He was trying to put an egg in this little egg holder. I don't know if you know these things, but they hold one egg for poaching. So he worked at it, and the whole thing fell apart. The egg fell on the floor. And I just thought, you know, I could have done better than this. I could really have done a lot better than this. And then I was watching him, just sort of in reverie. And he went over to the other side of the cupboard, and he was cutting bread. And that hand that I truly loved was holding it, and I could remember planting tulips together, seeing the hand, the tulip bulbs, seeing the hand with our animals, seeing that hand making love. And there was the most incredible flood came up in me. Just no questions asked. This is the man I love. And he felt it. And he turned around and looked at me, and he said, "Marion, would you like some coffee?" And that was the end of will we or won't we stay together. From that point on, we were going to work it out. Now, I'm not saying that we haven't, as I say, we've had 4 marriages, but they've all come about through working on projection, solving that layer, and up comes another layer. So we're both working on the unconscious layer by layer. It's bottomless. But that's life. I mean, that getting to know the soul, each on their own and with the other at the deepest level.
Marion, now let's go to perhaps the greatest and most difficult initiation and threshold that you have endured in this extraordinary journey of yours, and one in which you describe in actually my favorite of your books, Bone, which I think is a masterpiece of nakedness and ferocity and honesty. Your cancer, your experience with cancer.
The big lesson was, once again, surrender.
When Marion was undergoing the severe diagnosis of cancer, to the point where she was told, and I was called in, that this was terminal. Nothing more could be done. No more radiation. And whatever Marion wanted to do, she should do, quote, now. And Marion said, which I thought was wonderful, "There's nothing I want to do. I just want to go on doing what I've always done." And he said, "You're a lucky woman."
You describe in Bone this dream of the gypsy who imploded and exploded you back into life.
She was a big, powerful woman, and long hair, and strong, and in a canoe coming through reeds. And there was a child with her, the 5-year-old, with the bracelet and the corncob pipe. That dream, I didn't have time to work on it before I went to the hospital. But I knew that there was stuff in that dream that I had to pull out. And then when I got really sick, the next year, I thought, I'm going to go back to that dream. That's where I'll get the energy to heal myself.
I got pretty black images of what Marion was going through, and I went down in it until finally Marion said to me, Ross, I want you to get out of here. This is my death, not yours. You have no right to come in here, and there's no way you can. It's not your death, it's mine.
Then I ended up in a wheelchair, totally. But I would still try to be her and that little girl. She brought back that I can do it. And let me come in and live that reality that is in my bones.
In Bone, you write, if only I could release Gypsy from her bindings, pull her into consciousness, let the terror of annihilation go. Gypsy comes up from darkness to meet Swan coming down from light. If they could come together, I might be whole. Surrender, Marion. Be a lily of the field, even a little clod.
Marion got stronger through her, quote, death, unquote. So did I. I got stronger by getting out of it. Marion got stronger by going more deeply into it.
I have to point out, I had been working for 6 months trying to pull that energy into my cells. And I couldn't see any change for 6 months. But when the moment arrived, I was ready. We had this wonderful Dutch friend who loved Canadians because the Canadians freed Holland. And he invited us to his birthday party. We went, and we had a very nice time. The house was full of tulips. We sat on the couch. And at 10 o'clock, Ross said, we better go, Marion, you're very tired. And I said, yes. We got to the door, to the threshold, talking thresholds, and behold, here's a man in a tomato-colored suit and big yellow lapels playing a tuba in the door. And it was wondrous to behold. This tuba filled the whole threshold. And behind were 12 other instruments, all horns. So they made terrific noise. They came into the house, they're all Dutch. They came into the house. The house was just shaking. But they were playing the music that I danced to in Northern Ontario. And I had not heard that music since I'd been up there. And I was so excited by this that this energy started to come up in me, and it said, well, Marion, you can sit on this chair until you rot, but I am going to dance. And I was out of that chair and across that floor, and a Dutchman that had not been to the party before came walking in the door. He didn't know that I was an old woman in a wheelchair, and he just grabbed me. And we went through the house, dancing to this marvelous music. And I thought, I can do it. I can do it. Something was just discharged into me. And somehow I was able to overcome the fear. And it's never returned. The ego surrendered to the soul. And therefore, there's this incredible love of life as it is.
What are you writing now, Marion?
Too late.
What do you mean?
Now, too late. They are still filming me. Closer, he says, closer. I wish I had persevered with my typing, but I did not. I got cancer, and now I can never be automatic. My body rhythms do not swell like the sea when I type. I don't feel the great swell of feeling. My toes do not squeal. My gut does not growl. My eyes do not shine. No, if I had learned, if I had mastered typing long ago, it would be good. But now it's late. Too late. Ugh. Ah. It's very humbling. That's what I would say. It's very humbling to go through that kind of anguish and pain and to come out on the other side so glad to live. I am just, I died into life. Things have to die. If you're going to have any progress in the world, you got to get rid of what is dead in your own life, too, looking at that. What has died for me, what is no longer of meaning, has to be let go to make room for the new, it's just nature, for the new life. If you're going to grow, you are going to accept the death and accept the birth and feed the birth. You know the picture of the clown with his foot just over the precipice ready to, and his little dog, his instinct with him. And there he is, perched, as it were, on immortality. That's where I am, perched. And it's terrific. I love it. Because it makes me experience every moment.
You know, Marion, that at the center of the Milky Way there is a black hole. And the Milky Way is dancing in a spiral because it is being sucked down into the black hole that will smithereen every single atom in it. So that black hole is simultaneously creating and destroying.
And destroying. In my own life, as in everyone's life, there have been many little deaths. When I look back on these experiences, each one of them made way for new life. Our planet itself is now facing such a death, a shedding of its outworn skin. If we can embrace the shift consciously, creatively rather than negatively, we will see new life stirring within us. Earth is one country, and all of us are its citizens. My work, my life, is committed to the realization of that reality.